My next job is to introduce you to a very good-looking young man called Jed Watts. And some people might know Jed, but I've only just recently met him. But I know his family, and I know that they're a strong family and contribute much, particularly in the Georgetown area. So Jed is 19, he's Palawa. As I said, he grew up in Georgetown. During that time, he was immersed in culture by his dad. He likes singing in language, hunting, painting, hunting himself up. He must be a good dancer. I haven't seen him dance yet, but I look forward to it. He's currently studying cyber security at UTAS, at the University of Victoria. He should be here with us. Anyway, so he studies at night and he works full-time in construction. He's also a musician, writing his own songs and playing guitar. What a talented young man. Come on up here, Jed.
Thank you, Claire. I think we'll have to save the dance for after. Before I start, I'd like to pay my respects to the elders with us today. I want to give thanks for paving the way and keeping our culture alive. I'd also like to honour my late pop, Brian Mansell, who was a proud Tasmanian Aboriginal man and would be very proud to send me up here today. Welcome everyone. My name is Jed Watts and I'm honoured to join you all here today in what is an important time of year for Australians across the country. I'd like to thank Reconciliation Tas for giving me the opportunity of sharing my story and speaking in front of you all today. I was born in Katherine, Northern Territory. I grew up with my mother, father and two older sisters. At around 3 years of age, my family moved to Georgetown, Tasmania, where my mother grew up. I've lived in Tasmania for the majority of my life, up until a year ago when I moved to Melbourne. Today as I stand here, I aim to be a voice for generations, my generation. I want to share the experience of growing up as an Indigenous person in today's world. The Australia we live in today is not the same as it was 50 years ago, or even 20 or 10. The dynamic nature of our country proves that change is possible and probable in many aspects. Although we continue to push forward and change is ever present in today's society, remnants of the past still linger and it shines through in many ways. My own experience growing up Indigenous in Tasmania has been unique, to say the least. From as early as I can remember, and even up until this day, I've always been one of, if not the only Aboriginal person many of those around me have ever met. With little to relate to amongst my peers, it was as if I was on a separate island to the rest, surrounded by a sea of ignorance and prejudice. Many of you may be able to relate to this feeling of isolation, which is also known as being Tasmanian. The increased demand for reconciliation has begun to dissipate outdated views amongst the younger generations. As of today, the general knowledge and awareness of Indigenous people is much better than what it used to be. I see it in schools, at work, and in social groups. There is an ever-increasing amount of people who are eager to learn, teach, and become more in touch with the Indigenous Australians. The progress so far is promising. And there have been so many amazing people involved in the push for change. But the gap is still far from closed. While wonderful changes have been made, and we continue to move forward, we do not have equality just yet. If we had equality, real equality, 32% of Australian prisoners wouldn't be Aboriginal. The suicide rate of Aboriginals would be 3 times higher than non-Indigenous. And the chance of an infant dying at birth compared to white Australians wouldn't be twice as high. The list goes on, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Throughout my life, I've seen so many family members in and out of prison, lost to suicide, lost to battles with addiction. The struggle is real, and so many Indigenous Australians are experiencing it every single day. Also, throughout my life, I've experienced the reality of racism in Australia. The truth is that racism is still prevalent in today's society, whether it be jokes directed towards me because of the colour of my skin, or someone treating me differently just because I'm Aboriginal. The prejudices passed down through generations still shine through. It is because of the prejudice, discrimination and preconceived notions ingrained in our society that we are still fighting for equality to this day. It is because of ignorance that we feel a disconnect from other Australians. And it is because of this ignorance that I've always had to hold my guard up, be cautious of others, and be careful of who I can trust. In what world is it okay for certain people to be taught from a young age that they need to live carefully just because of the colour of their skin? This is the reality of growing up Indigenous in today's society. It hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows. When the world you grow up in constantly feels like it is built to bring you down and alienate you, it makes you feel less than those around you. It makes you feel as if you're one step below everyone else. It is a terrible feeling. It is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. Yet, it is something that is experienced by so many people daily. I have seen this world. I've experienced racism firsthand. I've heard almost every derogatory remark there is. I've felt what it feels like to be treated differently, to be looked at differently. Many people can't even begin to comprehend how it feels to be treated differently because of the way you look. To me, it is infuriating. But it also makes you strong, which is why Aboriginal people haven't given up. It is our hardships that make us such a strong people. Allow me to bring you to today. After years of continuous struggle, we are starting to see real change in our society. In our schools, we see amazing teachers who have a clear passion for sharing and gaining knowledge of Aboriginal culture. At any public event, acknowledgements to country are commonplace. And within our government, actions are being taken to ensure forward progress continues. Which brings me to the Voice referendum, set to be put to Australians later this year, poses the question. A proposed law to alter the Constitution to recognise the First Peoples of Australia by establishing an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander voice. Do you approve this proposed alteration? If successful, the advisory body will provide independent advice to Parliament, consisting of 24 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, equally representative of age, location and gender. I believe that an established voice within the Constitution is a massive step forward for Indigenous people. With proper execution and education, an Indigenous voice to Parliament could be the beginning of a whole new wave of progress. I believe that the passing of this referendum is not only important, but crucial in our battle for equality. Despite my support, I still have my own concerns. My first concern is that the nation is not going to make a well-informed choice when it comes time to vote. I fear that many will vote rashly without having a firm understanding of what they are voting for. A close friend of mine recently asked me the question, will this not drive a wedge between you and I? And it made me realise that many Australians may feel that they do not understand. In the case that the referendum doesn't succeed, it makes me wonder what will be next. Will it be a roadblock in our progress, a step backward? Or might this just be another tokenistic action to provide false hope? Which brings me to my main concern, tokenism, the practice of making only a symbolic effort. In the past, we have seen many actions taken with intention to invoke change. However, it is rare we see real change come to fruition from these actions. In recent years, the Change the Date movement has gained momentum. And while I appreciate the sentiment, changing the date of which most of Australia drinks excessively is not going to fix Aboriginal people's biggest problems. Quite similarly to how racism didn't die with Kevin Rudd's apology. As an Indigenous person, I can say that time and time again we have seen so many actions and promises which are not backed by any substance or anything that brings real change. From what I can tell at this point in time, The Voice has potential to be just another one of these actions. One issue is that an advisory body has no real power. It is there to give advice. There is no guarantee that the advice given will be heard and entirely considered. And just because The Voice exists, does that mean that our government will start actively seeking out ways to help those in remote communities? Will the government start suddenly taking action to help disadvantaged Indigenous youth? The government should not need an advisory body in the Constitution to give advice on how to help Aboriginal people. It almost seems as if, without the advisory body, the government has no idea of the struggles of Indigenous people. We do not need an advisory body to tell us that we need more support for remote communities, active support for disadvantaged youth, more time and money put into rehabilitation. I don't believe that anyone from Parliament could come here and say, well, we never knew about these issues until The Voice. This is the main reason I believe The Voice has potential to be a symbolic tool while still not addressing the real issue. It is actions like these which can make it hard to remain hopeful. However, like I said, we are a strong people, and I know for a fact that we will never stop fighting for fairness and equality. But until that day comes, I believe we must vote yes on the Voice referendum. I remain hopeful that the Voice referendum will be a massive leap forwards for Indigenous people. I remain hopeful that Australia will make the right decision when the time comes. And I remain hopeful that we are going to see real change in the near future. For us to see real change, it begins with you and me. Each and every one of us in this room has the chance to cause real change. We need to keep moving forward and keep fighting, keep working hard to ensure that we will have real equality. I dream of the day when Aboriginal people are empowered to the full extent, when we are no longer treated as less than because of the colour of our skin, when all of Australia can walk alongside each other hand in hand. So let us all continue on this path to reconciliation together, not as black and white, but as Australians. Thank you.
Well, we can't do better than that, can we? Thank you very much, Jed.